You're listening to the CyberWire Network, powered by N2K.
The IT world used to be simpler. You only had to secure and manage environments that you controlled. Then came new technologies and new ways to work. Now, employees, apps, and networks are everywhere. This means poor visibility, security gaps, and added risk. That's why Cloudflare created the first-ever connectivity cloud. Visit cloudflare.com to protect your business everywhere you do business. The FBI untangles scattered spider. The RansomHub group puts a deadline on Christie's. Prescription services warn customers of data breaches. Personal data from public sector workers in India is leaked online. Checkpoint says check your VPNs. The Internet Archive suffers DDoS attacks. A Minesweeper clone installs malicious scripts. Our N2K T-Minus Space Daily podcast host Maria Varmazis speaks with guest Carrie Hernandez Marshall, CEO and co-founder from Rebel Space Technologies, about the need to extend cybersecurity into space. And if you can't beat them, troll them. It's Tuesday, May 28th, 2024. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your CyberWire Intel Briefing. Hello there, and welcome back. It is good to have you with us here today. At last week's SleuthCon conference just outside Washington, D.C., Brian Vordren, Assistant Director of the FBI's Cyber Division, revealed insights into Scattered Spider, a cybercriminal group linked to numerous high-profile breaches. Known also as Octopus or UNC 3944, Scattered Spider compromises around 1,000 members, many of whom do not know each other directly. Vordren described the group as a very, very large, expansive, dispersed group of individuals. This group has breached several prominent companies, including MGM Resorts and Okta. The FBI considers Scattered Spider a top-tier cybersecurity threat, alongside nation-state actors from China and Russia. Composed primarily of native English speakers from the United States and the United Kingdom, the group employs both digital and physical threats. Some members even offer violence as a service, engaging in activities such as assaults and property damage to extort victims. Despite facing criticism for the lack of public arrests, FBI officials say they've taken non-public actions against the group. In January, authorities in Florida arrested 19-year-old Noah Urban, identified as a key figure in the crime ring. Also at SleuthCon, Selena Larson, a senior threat intelligence analyst at Proofpoint, stressed that average organizations faced greater risks from cybercriminals than from government-backed actors. Her remarks resonated with the audience, highlighting the need to reassess how resources are allocated in the fight against cybercrime. The hacker group RansomHub, responsible for a recent attack on Christie's, has threatened to leak sensitive client information if ransom demands aren't made by May 31st. RansomHub, previously behind an attack on Change Healthcare, claimed access to Christie's data on the dark web, releasing sample data, including names, birth dates, and nationalities. Christie's acknowledged a tech issue in early May, just before major auctions, revealing unauthorized access by a third party. Despite rejecting initial ransom demands, Christie's faced pressure to comply to avoid GDPR fines and reputational damage. Australian digital prescription service MediSecure confirmed that data stolen in a recent ransomware attack is for sale on the dark web. The breach, originating from a third-party provider, involved personal and health information of patients and healthcare providers. A hacker, Ansgar, claimed possession of 6.5 terabytes of data, posting it for sale at $50,000. The Australian National Cybersecurity Coordinator and police are investigating. MetaSecure assured the public that ongoing access to medication is unaffected. Meanwhile, pharmacy prescription service provider SaveRx is notifying 2.8 million individuals of a data breach that occurred on October 8, 2023. The attack, quickly contained, did not disrupt patient care or prescription shipments. However, attackers accessed non-clinical systems, exfiltrating personal information including names, addresses, birth dates, social security numbers, and insurance IDs. SaveRx worked with cybersecurity experts to ensure stolen data was destroyed. The company is offering affected individuals 2 years of free credit monitoring and identity theft restoration services. A report by website Planet revealed that over 1.6 million documents containing sensitive personal information from India's police, military, teachers, and railway workers were exposed online. Cybersecurity researcher Jeremiah Fowler discovered a 496-gigabyte database without password protection, likely offered for sale on a dark web-related Telegram group. The data, linked to Thought Green Technologies and Timing Technologies, included biometric information like facial scans, fingerprints, and personal ID documents. The exposed database contained real-time updating records from 2021 through 2024. Despite attempts to contact the companies, no responses were received. The exposure underscores vulnerabilities in Indian cybersecurity, which has seen a rise in attacks targeting major organizations, posing significant security and privacy risks. Cybersecurity firm Check Point advises customers to review their VPN configurations to prevent abuse by threat actors. Check Point observed attempts to access VPNs from various vendors using old accounts with password-only authentication. No software vulnerabilities were exploited in this case. Check Point recommends disabling unnecessary local accounts and using multi-factor authentication for needed accounts. They provided a script and hotfix to block password-only access and issued guidelines for improving VPN security and investigating suspicious activity. The Internet Archive is experiencing ongoing distributed denial of service attacks that began over Memorial Day weekend, causing service disruptions. Despite efforts to mitigate the attacks, many users still faced access issues. The organization confirmed continued attacks on Tuesday. The attacks have not affected the data, but have rendered most services unavailable. Hackers are using code from a Python clone of Microsoft's Minesweeper game to hide malicious scripts in attacks on financial organizations in Europe and the U.S. Ukraine's CSIRT NBU and CERT UA attribute these attacks to the threat actor UAC 0188. The attacks involve using legitimate Minesweeper code to conceal Python scripts that download and install SuperOps RMM, a remote management software. The attack starts with an email from support@patientdocsmail.com, prompting the recipient to download a malicious .scr file. This file includes both innocuous Minesweeper code and malicious Python code that downloads additional scripts. The attack aims to grant unauthorized access to compromised systems using SuperOps RMM. CERT UA identified at least 5 breaches and shared indicators of compromise for detection. Coming up after the break, our N2K T-Minus Space Daily podcast host Maria Varmazis speaks with guest Carrie Hernandez Marshall, CEO and co-founder of Rebel Space Technologies. They discuss the need to extend cybersecurity into space. Stay with us. And now, a word from our sponsor, Zscaler, the leader in cloud security. Cyber attackers are using AI in creative ways to compromise users and breach organizations. In a security landscape where you must fight AI with AI, the best AI protection comes from having the best data. Zscaler has extended its zero trust architecture with powerful AI engines that are trained and tuned by 500 trillion daily signals. Learn more about Zscaler Zero Trust Plus AI to prevent ransomware and AI attacks. Experience your world secured. Visit zscaler.com/zerotrustai. Don't struggle to align your organization's cybersecurity with business risk. Get the only solution that goes beyond reacting to threats with vulnerability and risk monitoring. You need the next evolution of MDR, and only Critical Start delivers it. Critical Start doesn't just monitor and respond to threats. They put you in control by detecting suspicious activities, quickly responding to contain threats, and identifying your most critical assets and protecting them against vulnerabilities and exposures. With continuous visibility, expert guidance, and measurable risk reduction, Critical Start has redefined what it means to manage cyber risk. Demonstrate provable security maturity to your leadership while positioning your program to achieve the greatest risk reduction per dollar spent. Stop fearing risk and start managing it with Critical Start. Visit criticalstart.com and request a demo today. That's criticalstart.com. Maria Varmazis is host of the N2K T-Minus Space Daily podcast. She recently caught up with Carrie Hernandez Marshall, CEO and co-founder of Rebel Space Technologies. They discuss the need to extend cybersecurity into space.
We started the company in late 2019, really just doing a lot of consulting work at first, and then decided to go into full venture-backed corporation world in 2020. My background is a little odd. I started out in the Air Force, U.S. Air Force, as an enlisted person, landed in, they give you a job. The job they gave me was to be a signals intelligence person doing Chinese Mandarin translations. So that was my introduction, to the world of the military. And it was interesting. I spent a lot more time playing with equipment and signals than I did really getting better at Mandarin. I can maybe order in a restaurant. That's it. So
That's good to know. Next time I'm there, I'll be like, calling you up.
When people are talking about me, that's about it. Like it wasn't really my forte.
Handy skill set, honestly. But yes. Yeah. So you wanted to play more with the equipment. Okay, so I can see where maybe that led to where you're at now. Yeah.
Then I was into tech, and so all right, what do I need to do that? So I went, got out of the Air Force, and I went into electrical engineering. Got my electrical engineering degree at the University of Wyoming. Landed back in the military as an officer right after 9/11. So ended up in a strange position being electrical engineer, previous Intel person in the military with no job. So I got sent to Vandenberg Air Force Base, and the thing, they go to this one organization. It was Space and Missile System Center, or Space and Missile Center, Det 9 at the time. And they're like, go talk to all the commanders and see who wants you, see who needs your skill set. So I walked around to each one, like, hey, I'm Carrie. I'm the brand new lieutenant. Here's my background. Here's what I do. And I landed at what became the 4th Space Launch Squadron, working for Lee Rosen at the time, who later went on to do all kinds of crazy things in space launch and at SpaceX. So that was
I was gonna say that's a big name. That's
So Lee's like, I like you. So brought me in. That core family at that unit just stayed together. Like we are all intertwined, still working together quite a bit. We all ended up, a lot of us at SpaceX, and now have our own gigs. So that's how I ended up in space. So I did space launch for a while. Then I went and I got into another strange world after that job in the military. I ended up as a reservist and also a defense contractor working in space electronic warfare. So we were at this organization called the Space Range, where we're responsible for building and figuring out all the ways that space systems could possibly be broken and how we can prevent that from happening before we field systems. So now I'm on this trajectory.
Yes, yeah.
So now I'm learning how to all the ways to protect space systems. So after I did that for a while, built a whole bunch of really cool, space simulations and environments and things that were used to both train Air Force operators for how to do space system operations, and then also kind of just figure out where the gaps were. Went from there into the world of network warfare. So this is where I start to intersect more into cyber world. And so I ran a pen test team and a test and evaluation team for the software that was being deployed in the Air Force side. And so now I'm doing cyber. I'd done space. So, I kind of just lived in these worlds.
You've had like 3 careers already.
I haven't even got started, right?
I know.
But they all go together. They all go together. I'm always the person with and it goes back to that original premise. I'm the person for the signals, huh? Let's talk to you. During this whole time, I had been getting, my graduate degree, and I was in a PhD program, kind of early AI, because I really had this obsession with starting way back in grad school about, the time, kind of just unsupervised machine learning. How can you use AI to do things that when you're talking about complex, they call it black magic, right? Communications and wireless and all this stuff. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way. And so I started looking into kind of the beginnings of applying AI to communications and to networks and to the RF environment to kind of figure out that, it can be doing it better than us, right? We can do cognitive radios. We can have these smarter things. But about that time, when I was in my PhD program working and running the network warfare team, I got a call from Lee Rosen, and he's like, hey, do you want to come to SpaceX? At this time, it was 2014. Things weren't, as mature as they are now. Things are still blowing up. And he's like, yeah, can you come to the launch site and run the RF and telemetry communications side of the house? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Rockets are never boring.
That's a great way of putting it.
So then I walk into commercial space land, and I get exposed to both, kind of just this new era of how things are done on space. The go fast, build quick, fail fast mentality. And I go from there into another tech startup, Slingshot Aerospace, for a while when they just get started. Just kind of, I knew them from the military, helping them out on some of the tech development roadmap. And that's where I kind of got the bug for startups. So when I finally decided to do that in 2019, I was like, all right, what do I want to do? What has been what needs fixed? And that's where I got to, hey, you know what? When I was on the defense and the government side, I assumed the commercial had the best stuff, man. I thought they're going to have all the great software. They're going to know everything. No. So you show up, it's like, no. Cybersecurity, afterthought. Advanced, any use of any advanced analytics tools for making sure signals and communications, you understood what was going on. The focus is still, like I said, to get on orbit. And that's not wrong. But, at some point we have to move beyond just, we're happy we got there. We're happy the capability works. Let's pretend now that this is now important critical infrastructure and treat it in a lot of the ways that we treat other critical networks and infrastructure.
Wow. Okay. Your story is awesome. So thank you for walking me through that, because it just speaks so much to how much you have so much experience in both the space and cybersecurity world that you can really see that both landscapes truly. And what I'm always personally fascinated by, as you just sort of touched on, is sort of why have the two not meshed as well as we know that they need to? And we were sort of chatting about this earlier. Is it a cultural thing? What's the deal? But also, I think people who are more mature in this space recognize as you said, there's a lot that needs fixed. We are not there yet. And I just would love to get your thoughts on, my God, where do we even start with this?
Yeah, right. Well, there's a running joke, right? If you put something in space, who's going to mess with it, right? You're not, for one thing, if something goes wrong, you're not sending the IT guy, turn it off and on again, right? And in the past, we were, the assumption is that it's just too hard, right? It's too hard to touch. It's too hard to get it up there. So it's definitely too much trouble for anybody to mess with it. It's not that, everybody kind of knows, everybody knows that cyber is important, and it's just not a priority because we haven't had that sort of major event to drive us, right? There hasn't been the big hack. There hasn't been the big takedown of something that we really, really need on a day-to-day basis. And now this keeps the military, the government up at night, enough so that they've funded us, very well. But commercially, it's just, the incentives aren't there, I don't think.
Can you give me a bit of a walkthrough of the threat landscape for space? Because this is something that even with my cyber background, it is a different flavor when it comes to space, not just because it's in space. I mean, we're talking about RF signals and you know signals very well. So walk me through it.
So, that's just one layer. So we're partnered with the Space ISAC, which was stood up to really provide kind of similar ISACs like information sharing analysis center, same as energy and power and water and all these other critical infrastructures. And so they would be great if you haven't had them on to come in and talk.
Talking to them next month.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have just this running board of things that are going on. And so, this kind of comes back to rebel space and we're building. Is the main problem is that it's in space. If you're talking about the communication side or even the system side, troubleshooting, like anomalies, determining what is an actual problem and a threat, and what is it it's me, right? It's like, and I think that's true in a lot of complex physical systems, but specifically in space, because you have to to identify something specifically as somebody is messing with me. I've been deliberately interfered with. Somebody has deliberately sent a command. I mean, those are seen. Like people do try all the time to take over satellites. Like they try to send commands and see what happens from all sorts of players because it's fun. It's in space, right? It's like the ultimate hack, right?
I pwned a satellite. Woohoo! Yeah.
Right. I got in and got access. But it's still hard, right? And so what we see is a lot of stuff that is just getting, we don't catch it, or we just kind of say, all right, I don't know. If you take a hit in your operations, but then it comes back, how much does it matter? So the problem there is that, I think as we mature and as things become much more juicier targets, right? When it becomes, really interesting to try to, mess with a Starlink or, try to take down, some critical piece of a constellation, it's going to escalate. And if you don't catch things early, if you can't differentiate between something that is just an anomaly in the environment or something that's something on your system, it's just hard. It's just hard to even begin to unravel that because, again, we don't have access to these physical devices like we do in a physical network, right? So when something goes wrong in a physical network and you don't know and you're trying to troubleshoot, what do? You go plug it, you swap it out, and that's not an option.
I was wondering as you were talking me through this, attribution's tricky on a good day. This is a sort of a flippant question, admittedly. If your satellite is being messed with, does attribution really matter if you're, in that moment? Or is long-term, I imagine you want to know. But in that moment, you're kind of like, I just need to get this thing non-messed with.
Attribution, it's always hard. And, I think, ideally, yeah, it'd be great. And attribution in a way, too, like, it's just even when it's innocent. Like, if I have interference, if I know who's doing it, I can tell them to turn it off, right? And every time I fly over this ground station, something happens. All right. If I can pinpoint that, and you can sometimes, right? You can figure it out. But the more important question is, what happens next? So if I'm seeing this pattern of things and it's not me, and I can know that it's not me, it's not my system, then I can also say, one, I can avoid it, take mitigation measures, just standard risk management practice. Or the other thing I could do is I can just be responsive to it and understand that, like, okay, I see that this has happened. And in this pattern I've seen before and say in our community, other people have reported that the next thing that happens is this. So, maybe it's somebody just trying to see if they can spoof my signal. They can pretend to be something they're not, trying to trick my satellite to think they're the ground station. This understanding that attribution aside, but understanding that pattern.
Yeah. Like, is it an accidental interference or is it malicious? Or is it, one masking as the other potentially? This is the part where I get really fascinated by how this all works because accidental stuff will happen, but I imagine it would be. Now I'm just making stuff up. Now I'm imagining it would be really fun to pretend. Anyway, I'm gonna leave that thread off to the side. Anyway, so we've covered a bit of what the current threat landscape looks like, and there's a lot of different things that can happen. Some more. Terrestrial, pedestrian threats, I suppose, like, doing even Viasat when it had its issues in 2022, it was a VPN. I think it was like a VPN issue, essentially, or I may be misremembering that detail. I apologize, but it wasn't like a super sophisticated hack. It was pretty much like something wasn't updated that should have been. And that's kind of like, it keeps a lot of people employed in the cybersecurity industry, is that kind of thing. It's like, all right, we've seen this before.
That is true, yeah.
When we think about the future of cybersecurity in space, and you sort of hinted at it, we're getting these incredibly sophisticated constellations that are being built at a breakneck pace right now, and going in or already are in space right now. What does that mean for what we're looking forward? What kind of new threats do we think might be emerging there?
I think what's kind of hot right now, hot topic that we are also, looking at how to address is the use of autonomous systems and AI on the space systems themselves. Kind of a joke, AI for AI. But we're going to rely on more autonomy, right? Because, again, we don't have that. We're not flying these things or so much. And so on orbit, especially if you're doing crazy stuff like cislunar, on orbit, you need to be able to have these smarter machines that make smarter decisions, and you can reconfigure and if they see something go wrong, adjust. One of our key things right now with Space Force is we're supporting the Orbital Prime program, which is in space assembly manufacturing. On orbit, vehicle to vehicle, type of action that really can't be done manually. That's really hard to build in the perfect non-machine learning, non-autonomous system. So how do you know when those are getting poisoned? How do you know when your data's off, either intentionally or unintentionally? And how do you understand when to kind of throw a stop on that? And so, I think we see this in the autonomous driving cars now, right? All the deep safety concerns about how do you check the AI? How do you do safety and resiliency? We need that same thing on orbit, especially if we're doing more ambitious things where vehicles are approaching other vehicles and trying to maintenance and service them. Because you don't want to. What happens if two cars crash? It's tragedy and people could get hurt. But if two major city systems crash in orbit, that trash is in orbit.
Yeah, and definitely we don't want the Kessler effect happening that would be an absolute nightmare of. My goodness, yeah,
right. So even just somebody messing with it, even like just say not the super sophisticated hackers. Let's just say somebody's aware that something's going on. They might try, maybe I try to jam something. Maybe I try to see if I can spoof a command. Maybe the AI on there just, has a bad day. I don't know. So we just need to be thinking, I think, like this about how we go forward and protect and, from all different kinds of things.
Carrie, this has been a fascinating conversation for me personally. Thank you so much. I wanted to make sure I gave you the last word. So this is sort of the open opportunity. If there's something I missed or something you wanted to mention, please go right ahead.
My takeaway is just, having been in both industries, my key point, I know I've said this several times, is it's just, we need better tools. I think it's really important that if that is going to be the world we live in for quite a while, then we need to at least invest in kind of a common understanding of what is going on with our systems, what is going on with our software, just so that we can even begin to, be prepared for a future where, there are legitimate and major attacks going on.
That's N2K T-Minus Space Daily podcast host Maria Varmazis speaking with CEO and co-founder of Rebel Space Technologies, Carrie Hernandez Marshall. Are lengthy security reviews pulling attention away from your security program? With the largest network of trust centers, Vanta can help you streamline security reviews to win customer trust, save time, and close deals fast. Proactively demonstrate security by showcasing key resources like your SOC 2 or ISO 27001 and provide real-time evidence for passing controls. And when a security questionnaire is required, Vanta takes the first pass for you. Visit vanta.com/cyber to take a self-serve tour. That's vanta.com/cyber. And finally, Russian cyber criminals have been nearly untouchable, launching ransomware attacks against hospitals, critical infrastructure, and businesses with little fear of Western law enforcement or Russian authorities. Even when Russian police take their servers offline, the hackers often resume operations within weeks. A story from Matt Burgess for Wired describes how Western law enforcement is now adopting a new tactic: psychological operations to disrupt cybercriminals' trust and morale. They're essentially trolling the hackers. For example, in Operation Kronos, the UK's National Crime Agency infiltrated the Lockbit ransomware group, responsible for extorting over $500 million. They took the group's systems offline, redesigned their leak website, and published Lockbit's inner workings, including usernames and login details of 194 affiliate members. This public exposure shattered Lockbit's anonymity and brand, making it toxic to potential collaborators. Hackers logging into Lockbit's administration systems received messages showing authorities had gathered their details, from usernames to cryptocurrency wallets. These psyops targeted the group's brand reputation and internal trust, creating friction and distrust among members. As a result, only 69 of the 194 affiliates returned to the platform after the operation. In another case, London's Metropolitan Police disrupted LabHost, a phishing service. Police sent personalized video messages to 800 criminals, detailing the data they had collected, including IP addresses and targeted victims' countries. The message: "We've been watching you every time you visited us." The impact of these tactics is significant. Hackers discuss these operations on Russian-language cybercrime forums, revealing divisions and mistrust. For instance, after Operation Kronos, some criminals speculated about possible collaboration with law enforcement, while others warned against making memes or jokes about the situation. By using these psychological strategies alongside traditional technical measures, law enforcement hopes to make the cybercrime world a much more paranoid and hostile environment for the cybercriminals. The ultimate goal: make hackers think twice before launching their next attack. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to cyberwire@n2k.com. We're privileged that N2K CyberWire is part of the daily routine of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K makes it easy for companies to optimize your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your teams while making your teams smarter. Learn how at n2k.com. This episode was produced by Liz Stokes. Our mixer is Trey Hester, with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Our executive editor is Brandon Karp. Simone Petrella is our president. Peter Kilpie is our publisher. And I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Hi, everybody. It's Maria Varmazis here, your host over at T-Minus Space Daily, and sometimes a guest on Hacking Humans, too. We here at N2K CyberWire work hard to bring you concise, intelligence-driven news and commentary, and we'd like to know how we're doing. Please take a few minutes to complete our audience survey and share your feedback to help us continue to grow and meet your needs. Visit cyberwire.com/survey. That's cyberwire.com/survey to get started. Thanks so much for your input as we reach for the stars. It means the universe to us.
And now a word from our sponsor, Netskope. Netskope is a worldwide leader in SASE and Zero Trust. Its unified platform, Netskope One, provides optimized access and Zero Trust security for people, devices, and data anywhere they go, helping customers reduce risk, accelerate performance, and get unrivaled visibility into any cloud, web, and private application activity. To learn more about how Netskope helps customers be ready for anything on their SASE journey, visit netskope.com.